the 10 most common job interview questions with tips on how to answer them. Hi, how are you? I'm Romulo Gutierrez. This is the Job Room channel. I conducted a survey with over 1,000 companies around the world, asking which questions are most important in job interviews. And they told me the questions, and I'm also going to give you tips on how to answer them. So pay close attention. This is the best tutorial to help you get ready for your job interview. The 10th most common question is, tell me about your professional background. This question comes up in interviews about 15% of the time. To answer, use 2 techniques. Technique 1, don't go over the 3-minute limit. Keep your answer between 2 and 3 minutes. And the second technique, tell your story in a way that the interviewer, whether they're a manager or an HR professional, can picture you in the position you're applying for, okay? So, for example, if I'm going to an interview for an administrative manager position, I can tell my story like this. I started in the administrative field as an assistant, where I worked with accounts payable, Excel spreadsheets, and organizing financial transactions. I did a good job. After 2 years, I got a promotion. Then you keep telling your story as if your career has always been on the rise, which I call the hero's journey. He shows the results he achieved, the impact he made at previous companies, what he learned, and importantly, he tries to use keywords from the current job posting from the position he's applying for. For example, in this job posting, it says you'll need to use Excel. In this job posting, it says you'll be working with accounts payable and accounts receivable. So he brings this up throughout his career story so that the recruiter or hiring manager, when interviewing him, thinks, I get it. So he's already done all of that. That's the big trick for answering this question. 9th question, here we go. 9th, let's go together all the way to the 1st, which comes up in 70% of interviews. The 9th question is, why did you apply for this position? This question comes up 19% of the time. So my tip is, before any interview, carefully read the job description. You should highlight 2 or 3 keywords that are important for the position. Within the context of those 2 or 3 keywords, you're going to explain why you applied for the job, trying to connect yourself to the technical aspects of the position. For example, I'm applying for a nursing position, and the job description says I'll have to handle all aspects of patient care and specimen collection. Why did you apply for this position? I applied for 2 main reasons. First, because I've been working with specimen collection for 8 years, and I believe I can contribute a lot to this role. Second, I've been a patient care nurse for 12 years. Therefore, I believe this position is closely related to my technical skills, and that's why I applied for it. If you want to enhance your answer, you can also add a 3rd element that connects you to the company. All right, let's move on to the 8th most common job interview question. This one appears in 22% of interviews. Let's go. The recruiter or department manager takes your resume and starts asking about each company you've worked for. It's not a specific question, but for example, they'll pick company A and say, what did you do at this company? Then they'll pick company B and say, tell me, what did you do at this company, So when they start, quote unquote, going through your resume, here's what you should do. Try to answer in no more than a minute for each job, for each company you've worked at, always trying, once again, to connect your answer to those 2, 3, or even 4 keywords you highlighted in the job posting. Actually, when they ask, what were your responsibilities, for example, at Amazon? So they want to know if what you do or did at Amazon is related to what the job posting is asking for here. Then they ask, what do you do at Google? Now, they want to know if what you did at your previous company at Google is what you'll be doing here. In other words, always try to have those 3 or 4 technical terms ready. For example, in the logistics field. Then I would say, look, I worked a lot with international shipping operations. I had to handle all the supply chain management. I had to select suppliers. And for example, what I'm saying I did here at Google is just an example. These are points that are listed in this job opening. Then the interviewer will see me as a fit for the position, and that'll be a perfect match for you to get approved. Let's move on to the seventh question. This one comes up about 30% of the time. Before I continue, do you want to practice an interview? Shall we do a mock interview? Let's do it. Message me on this WhatsApp number right here, okay? The number is also in the first link in the description and in the first pinned comment. The prices are low for subscribers of the Job Room channel. There are new videos here every Wednesday at 1 p.m., okay? So subscribe, leave your like, so we can keep this project going. The seventh most common interview question: why did you leave your last job? Very good, okay? There are a few different ways you can answer this. You can't lie, but you can leave some things out. Choosing not to mention certain things can be a good strategy, okay? So, why did you leave your last company? Whenever you answer this, before giving your reason, mention something positive you contributed there. So, if someone asks me, why did you leave Amazon when you were a logistics assistant? I could answer, I worked at Amazon for 2 years. There, I developed a really cool project with my supervisor to improve internal movement. This reduced losses by up to 35% from wasted shipments. So first, I share a professional achievement. Then I explain why I left. Amazon at that time, by the way, I didn't actually work at Amazon. This is just an example, okay? Amazon at that time was going through a major restructuring of positions, and there were some layoffs. And I was let go during that period, but I left feeling grateful. So along those lines, you can explain the reason for your leave, your departure. A lot of people ask me, Romulo, what if I leave and nobody told me why? I left after 2 months. I don't know if I was let go because I was inefficient. Okay? You should stick to the same approach. In 2 months, I learned a certain task, delivered a certain result. The company was going through a restructuring, and I was let go. Stick to the same approach, okay? Now, let's go to the sixth most common question in job interviews. At 7 minutes and 10 seconds into the video, for those of you here with me in the job room, it's, tell me your strengths for this position and also your weaknesses for this position. So, what are you going to say? Strengths, okay? My tip for both, actually for any question, never lie. Never lie, okay? When it comes to talking about strengths, I always give this exercise to the people I coach for interviews. You're going to take a sheet of paper or the Notes app on your phone and fold it in half. On one side, you'll write your strengths, and on the other, your weaknesses. For strengths, write down 10 things you're really good at and that people say you're good at. And on the other side, negative points before the interview, that. 10 things you need to improve. When you go to the interview, look at the job posting, read the job description, and pick out 3 good things to mention as strengths and 3 things you can mention as weaknesses that won't hurt your chances. But make sure they're real things, because usually they'll give you a psychological test at some point during the selection process. And if they realize that what you're saying isn't true, it could hurt your chances, okay? So for strengths, for example, if I work with visual arts and I'm going to interview at a museum, I could say, look, I'm extremely observant. I have a critical eye for flaws. These are key strengths for this profession. But I could mention a weakness like, oh, I'm a distracted and careless person. That's not a good weakness to mention. Maybe saying that I'm a bit shy or have trouble speaking in public would be a better weakness to mention. So for strengths, bring up the ones that are best for the position, and for weaknesses, mention those that won't get in the way of the job. And if you haven't liked the video yet, hit the like button, subscribe, and help this project grow on YouTube. The fifth most common question in interviews is, now the questions are going to get tougher, okay? The first one, in fact, comes up 70% of the time. Tell me about the most recent courses and updates you've completed. This question is really important nowadays, in a world where technology is advancing without limits, in a world where artificial intelligence is already changing jobs, changing routines, eliminating some jobs and creating others. The recruiter or manager wants to know about your ability to learn, grow, and most importantly, to keep yourself up to date. So, the worst answer you can give Let me give you an example. Let's say I'm a doctor and they ask me this. What were the last courses you took? Oh, 3 years ago, I took a course on pediatrics for babies with bronchopneumonia. Let's suppose I'm a pediatrician. Come on, 3 years ago is a long time. It's a long time. Do you get what I mean? So you need to show that you're taking current courses. So I could say, look, as a doctor, I'm always studying. A month ago, I took a course on how to treat bronchopneumonia in newborn babies. I also attended a conference about medications aimed at caring for children who aren't developing physically as they should, and I also watched some YouTube videos related to how to deal with parents of babies with serious illnesses, how to emotionally support those parents. So show that this doctor is keeping up to date. And that's exactly the answer the recruiter wants to hear in the interview, someone who is staying current. Let's move on to the fourth question. This one will definitely come up in your next job interview. Tell me, what was the biggest mistake you made in your career? What's the biggest mistake you've made in your career? You fall 52% of the time. My tip, be careful with the phrase, biggest mistake. When you hear this question from the manager or recruiter, replace biggest mistake with just a mistake. Don't talk about the biggest one. Don't talk about the worst one. Talk about a mistake you made and that you managed to correct along the way. Hypothetically, let's say I'm a cook now, a head chef. They ask me, what was the biggest mistake you made? I could say, look, at a certain point I was making onion soup for a customer and I got distracted and ended up, for example, replacing the onion with tomato. And when that was served to the customer, it wasn't the biggest mistake, but I shared a mistake. When it was served to the customer, there was a complaint, I quickly remade the soup, and that's where the main point comes in, the part you need to pay attention to. To avoid that kind of mix-up again, from then on, I started using 2 paper order slips, always to check the first note. And when I sent the dish to the table, I would look at both slips to make sure I was really sending the right food to the customer. So that's a mistake that was corrected. Share minor mistakes from your profession, real ones, and show that you've already created a system to fix them. That's how you should answer. In the same way, here comes the question. Tell me about your greatest achievement. Share your biggest achievement. This one comes up 60% of the time. In 60% of interviews, they'll ask you, tell me about your greatest achievement. To talk about your biggest achievement, always use the STAR method, okay? STAR, situation, task, action, and result. Situation, task, action, and result. So you're going to say, my greatest achievement happened in a situation where, for example, I work as a receptionist at an airport, okay? A customer had lost her carry-on bag, and inside her carry-on was a very important family heirloom. My task was to make an announcement. I'm just giving an example here, all right? Inside the airport, I asked that anyone who found a bag with a certain characteristic, for example, a red suitcase with pink handles, and then I explained what the task was, and the action I took was also to notify all the security staff from my airline, as well as informing my manager. The result was that, about an hour later, her luggage was recovered, and she left a big compliment on the airline's social media, mentioning me by name. It was an important outcome, because what belonged to her had a lot of sentimental value, and I was really happy that everything worked out. So, share a situation where you had a situation, task, action, and result, where someone was happy, where the numbers improved, or where you got promoted. These are things you could include in your answer, okay? The second most common question in interviews, and this one will definitely come up, is, why should I hire you? Why should I hire you? Okay? When you're asked why you should be hired, the recruiter or the manager is actually giving you the chance to say, okay, now I'd like you to sell yourself as a product and tell me the qualities that make you the right person for the job. Here, I'm going to go back to an earlier answer I gave as a tip for you, which is this: try to relate yourself to 3 technical aspects of the position. Let me repeat. Try to relate yourself to 3 technical aspects of the position, okay? So, for example, you carefully read the job description, highlight the keywords, just like I mentioned, the core competencies for the position, and then you pick the ones where you have the most experience or qualifications, and you answer based on those. Look, you should hire me for 3 reasons. For example, I'm going to be a salesperson at a toy store. First, because ever since I started working in sales, over the past 2 years, I've managed to meet my targets every single time. In the job description, it says target. The second point, I've been working with toy sales for 2 years, and recently I took a course on, for example, how to approach parents and convince them to buy toys for their children. That's just an example. Let's suppose that in the job posting, it says that the employee needs to have a good relationship with parents. Then you connect your qualifications to the job using real qualities, real adjectives. You actually have that match the position. That's going to work really well, really well. And the number one question that comes up most often in job interviews all over the world is, tell me a little about yourself. Tell me a little about yourself, okay? This is an extremely important question. I have the script ready to show you. After all, it's the question that comes up the most in job interviews. So watch this video that's going to pop up here. Look, watch it because it's really going to help you answer. Great preparation. Take care and see you next time. Bye-bye.